You get teary-eyed and think of dogs that are your favorite, right? But we have to let them go too, right? So the reason we're here is to get these guys into homes, right? And so a lot of this, what we're going to be talking about today, and I think this is one of the most important out of the four. Home alone and energy needs are probably the two most important things of needs that we need to meet with these shelter dogs. So I'm going to give a brief overview of each one of these, kind of quick here, and if you have any questions on it, let me know, and then we'll get into kind of what home alone is. Basic manners, that's obviously basic, how does the dog learn? And that's what that essentially talking series is going to be about. It's going to be about how can we teach dogs to do things that we want them to do. So that's what basic manners is, and usually the prescriptions for that, it really can be dog dependent. So if there's a dog, so a dog like Chopper needs to learn how to lay down more consistently. He sits pretty well, but he needs to learn down. So it's usually from the behavior evaluation, where do we want this dog to go, and where are they at right now. And the take-home message for basic is kind of just the process of learning for the dog. So that's what they'll take into the home. What's that? That's more of a dog that's reactive. So a lot of times they're dogs that are reactive to other dogs, and they're also handling issues as well. This is also, if you guys, so for the first dog talk and safety is a lot of what I teach in there now. We're talking about just sitting in the kennel and waiting for that dog to kind of calm down and de-stress. And so that's also where you'll find that. Essentially what we're looking for is a dog to make a switch in their brain from being anxious and reactive to just taking a deep breath, I'm with a human being and they're not going anywhere. So that's a lot of what this is. And then also some on-leash manners in terms of the reactivity to other dogs. And then energy needs. Chopper is a high energy dog. So we need to try to meet those energy needs as best we can. The other part of this is that this is a tool, should be a tool, it's going to become a tool for adoption counselors. So the adoption counselor can say, and so this is important, if you do something with a dog, it's important to know what they've done. If a dog has mastered something, definitely let us know too. But like with energy needs, I'll put on here, I might not put a walk, because I think the dog's going to be adopted in a week. And I want the dog to be interacting with other dogs. Bozeman is such a dog town, the more social skills we can give them good social skills with other dogs, I might put just play groups and playtime. And playtime works a lot on that impulse control. So a lot of times it's that 1-year-old dog, we can work on a lot more with that kind of stuff. Doesn't mean you shouldn't take the dog for a walk. If there's something on that's not prescribed for that particular dog, and you really like to crate train a dog and it's not on there, go ahead and crate train the dog. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to do what's on here, but these are just recommendations for that particular dog and tendencies that I've seen over the years and what they can take into their home to educate the adopter. Make sense? So for home alone, specifically, it's not always necessarily just being alone, but it's also in-house manners. So this also, I would say, includes house training. So kind of the E-team and what you guys do for the E-team is also kind of part of the home alone. It's not prescribed on the thing because it's something that's more of a routine everyday thing. But it's part of that overall component. If the dog's house trained, they're going to live in the house. If they're not, they're going to be more likely to be shut outside. And so less chance for the dog to form a bond with their human being. And that's kind of the basic thought of it. We see a lot of backyard dogs here, so they don't know how to live in a house. The dog chews on something, they get yelled at, and they get thrown in the backyard. Instead of getting told what they are supposed to chew on and managing their environment. And I always call it microenvironment, so you have to manage the dog's environment inside the house. And so it's almost a lot of like crate training is about the dog accepting restraint. And so a lot of people have not taught their dogs how to accept the fact that they're going to be in a restrained area for a little while. Or they force it on them and they don't give the dog something to do without meeting their needs, their energy needs, or the dog has to go to the bathroom, or whatever it is. So one of the common problems that I get a phone call on a lot is a barking dog. And I immediately ask, what can the dog see? Why is that dog barking? And you have to kind of just break it down on why is this behavior happening. And a lot of times the dog's outside and is just constantly getting stimulated by the next door neighbor dog, by somebody walking by. They're just sitting perched in the window barking at everything that goes by. And so a lot of times I just instruct them, well, make sure the dog can't see those things. And a lot of times that barking will stop. So, which I forgot to grab, but you guys know what the visual barriers are, right? And so we put those texts, we got to try to be as proactive as we can with that, and we try to pick up on behaviors as soon as we see them. We want to prevent rehearsal of those bad behaviors. So the lower ones are typically for dogs that are reacting to other dogs going by their kennel. And that's a common, it's very natural behavior. They're in a very tight area. It's their little place and they want to protect it. So it's very natural for them to be protected, excuse me. Upper visual barriers are more for essentially dogs that tend to be more shy. And so a lot of times we're actually kind of training the human being when we're doing those upper ones. Because they'll see a shy dog and they'll be standing there looking at the shy dog and the dog's in the back going, whoa, what are you doing? So at least right off the bat it's upper and they're like, oh, who's in here, you know? Of course some people like to lift it up if we don't nail it down. So they'll pick up the barrier and look in. So the upper barrier is primarily used for that, so for fearful dogs, and it encourages that dog to come towards the front of the kennel. And it works really well in a lot of cases. So I really like that upper visual barrier. I have found it also works sometimes for dogs that are kind of really overly confident in jumping up on the kennel door. It helps to bring a little bit of a softer approach. So we have a dog right now named Stripes who we've done that with an upper barrier because you go up to his kennel, he jumps right up. So this kind of brings him down. In terms of visual barriers, you'll occasionally see that kind of stuff on here. Just make sure there's a visual barrier here up. But also, you guys, if you see something, if you're walking a dog out and there's a dog that's like fence fighting all the time, every time you walk by, feel free to go find a staff member and put a visual barrier up if there isn't one there. So we can always use your help with it. We don't see everything. We can use your eyes and just be a team with that. If you're seeing something, go ahead and put it up. It's not going to do any harm for sure. So. The other big thing you always see, I almost always put this on here, is either a kibble puzzle. Kibble puzzle, the dog has to be somewhat food motivated, like Chopper. If they're not too food motivated, they won't really mess with that, and we're still just trying to get them, they're just too stressed being here and they have a hard time eating, so it'll affect their appetite. And we're just trying to get them in a habit of eating. But you'll see calm and kibble puzzle, so that's where you'll see it. So if you give them one, just make sure you check it off on that. What this is about in terms of our interactive toys is essentially, why do you guys think? Why are interactive toys important?
Keep them stimulated.
It makes them think.
Makes them think, keeps them stimulated. What did it do to Chopper?
Oh, it distracted them.
Calmed him down, distracted him, kept him calm. So I mean, all this stuff, if you put it all together, so yeah, there's the visual barrier there, but a dog will still sit up in front of that visual barrier and wait for dogs to go by. So if you're walking dogs, and say like, if you're doing the E-team in the morning, or there's a lot of dog traffic going on, and you see a dog is constantly at the door, go get a kibble puzzle, give him a meal, give him his kibble puzzle, and see if he starts working on that instead of obsessing and worrying about what's going by his kennel. All right? This is really about thinking outside the box. If you have anything, just really think as creatively as you possibly can when you do this stuff. We had dog Puma. I don't know if you guys remember Puma. She was here for quite a while. And the second that she heard, we have in the kitchen, as soon as she heard the prescription foods getting poured, she could hear them, and she was like, she could hear that sound in the kitchen. And she was in the main adoption room, like on the other end. She knew I was feeding her. So I would take her and I'd put her outside and I'd take her bowl of food and I'd just chuck her bowl of food and she'd sit around and sniff out every little piece of kibble. Because she was a hound dog and she loved it. She was like, okay, it's good to find all my food. And get off the ground. So that's an example. You can also hide food, so I'll hide food like in blankets and that kind of stuff. There's also, you can also take rags, cotton rags and stuff. If you have a dog, so you see a dog that shreds something, they like to shred stuff. So take a sheet, take their kibble, tie it all up, a bunch of knots, and they can sit there and they tear out the kibble. So look to what the dog enjoys doing, and then kind of cater to that to some degree. But no, that's a good way. That's what you need to think. Think of the dog as a scavenger, hunter, kind of on their own, searching for their food. Instead of us just, oh, here's some free food, and bucking down their food. So making them work for their food is just a good way for them to spend their time. It's positive. They're not doing anything harmful to themselves, and it's natural for them. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing with this category is really think natural. What's natural for the dog? What are the natural tendencies of the dog to search and find food, and scavenge for food? The other big one is chewing. So this isn't necessarily chewing, but the Kongs are more of the chewing aspect. And they have found that chewing actually releases some endorphins. So when the dog actually chews on stuff, it helps to release them and calm themselves down. So if you do see a dog that likes to chew, so like Jasmine, who got adopted, hopefully
The
stays adopted. What?
The Jasmanian devil got adopted?
Yeah, Jasmine.
Wow.
But she loved to chew.
You mean a black lab?
Black lab Jasmine.
Wow.
You're a great dog.
High energy.
But it's a natural behavior. It's a very natural behavior for dogs to chew. Why would a dog need to chew?
What they do.
That's what they do, but why would they need to if they were not domesticated?
They have
Clean
to
their
tear
teeth.
their stuff off the carcass.
Tear their stuff off the carcass, break bones,
Sure.
all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, it's working out those muscles. They're chewing those and they're trying to work those muscles out. Cleans their teeth, oral hygiene, all that good stuff. So look for that. If you know there's a dog that likes to chew, it doesn't have to be food necessarily, but give them something to chew. In terms of other tools we use, popsicles. You guys know what popsicles are? So this is a popsicle right here. I don't know if it's going to come out or not. There's one in there. So those guys, it takes a while for them to kind of chew those down. They don't necessarily, one thing we haven't tried, played around with too much yet is, you don't necessarily have to hang them all the time. You might be able to put them down on the ground, but freezing things is good. And this goes back to, what's the dog's sense? What is he, so, Chopper's a dog. I'm always challenging his brain. As you can see, what put that shirt on, it's something that helps him to calm down. When I gave him water, I gave it in a cup. I didn't give it in a bowl, so he has to think about how to get his nose in there. So I said, think outside of the box. Safety and considerations. So is the dog interested? Is the dog food motivated or not? So that's number one. Then ease of cleaning it. So they make these cubes, which I like a lot, but they're really hard to clean and they're really noisy. And so you got to be aware of, yeah, the dog might be enjoying it, who has it, but does the dog next door enjoy it? So if a dog's sitting there squeaking, is the dog next door going, oh, it's a squeaky dog? So be aware of that, sound. So you got to be aware of the whole kennel, the kennel as a whole. So yeah, be aware of that kind of stuff. And then the destruction of it, if they sit there and start destroying it. I have seen dogs, the kibble ball, was it Cash who crunched them? I don't know if you guys remember Cash, who's a three-legged pit bull that we had. And he would essentially crush those kibble balls. He was a big old pit bull head on, and we started This is a lot easier. And then obviously the appropriate size for the appropriate dog. The biggest thing you want to watch out for that is the small dogs can get their jaw caught in a Kong. So if I give this to one of our small dogs right now, Ralph, yeah, he's going to might get his jaw caught in there and have to pull it off. So really think alive with this. What's another way to make food alive? So I like kind of what Jim said, same situations where the dogs go and search for the food, right? So there's that search aspect. How else can we make it alive? So think dogs see faster strobe. How do you make it alive?
Move.
Make it move. Good. And that's that's fun. You're just kind of sitting there. You just hand food to the dog and get pretty boring. I'll sit there. We had a dog. Her name was Ela. Anyway, door darter. She wanted to charge her way through. And so I stood there at her door with the door open with her kibble and sat there and chucked kibble into the back of her kennel. And she started running after, chasing kibble, and then coming up and sitting and looking at me, when are you going to do the next one? She stopped worrying about escaping out of her kennel. And so I changed her emotional state with the food, and then I left her in a good place, and I left her kennel. So try to do that whenever you can. So use that food in those kinds of ways. Try to just change the dog's mind instead of obsessing over something else.